Hello everyone! This is going to be quite a long video because we are going to draw a horse with colored pencils, which is quite a time-consuming technique. Most of the video is going to be sped up because you can still see what I am doing this way, but the video will not last 3 hours. Although if anyone would be interested in that, let me know. There is an exception for the eye though, which is in real speed, as I have a feeling that you might be the most interested to see how it is done. So we went straight to the coloring, but of course I had my sketch ready before, and a moment ago you could see me rolling a kneaded eraser through it because I wanted to make it more pale. Too thick pencil lines might be too visible at the end, and the graphite might also mix with the pencils, creating dirty looking spots. I am using my favorite colored pencils here, which are Faber-Castell Polychromos. I start my drawings with pale first layer. There are people that start with a section and work on it till it's finished before going to the next one, but I prefer to make the base first. You can notice that I am not filling up the whole shape with solid color, but I added orange in the areas that are going to be darker, and I left the more pale areas blank. I am also using a very light warm brown, which could also be called ochre, in places that are going to be darker, but not as intensely orange. After this pale layer, I add more details, like here on the ears, but it is not a big level of details. I just mark different areas with different colors and I put slightly more pressure. It is still very light and leaves a lot of room to fix any potential errors. This step is totally optional and will actually not work with most pencils, but Polychromos pencils blend very well if you use a solvent. I usually use it for the first layers to blend the pencils and create a smooth layer. To be honest, I should have much more pigment to use the solvent. The more pigment there is, the better it will blend. However, I wasn't going for a super realistic style that day, so I just worked with this little pigment that I had to have some initial more or less blended base. Usually I have much more pigment and I use more than one layer of solvent. After the first base layer is mixed, I add more pigment and then blend it again with the solvent. But today I'm just using one. To blend with solvent, I use a regular round brush and I start with lighter areas first. It is very easy to move dark pigment to the light areas and I need to avoid that. As I said, there is too little pigment, so you can still see quite a lot of pencil marks, but there is much less paper showing through, which was the aim here. The solvent dries very fast, but I make sure that it is dry before proceeding. I used about 20 colors to draw this horse, but this amount is totally not necessary if you don't have that many pencils. You will see me using about 3 shades of yellow, vibrant orange, about 2 reds, light pink, 8 different shades of various lighter and darker browns, warm grey, white, black, pale blue, purple and dark blue. However, the minimum that would be necessary would be yellow, orange, red, pink, light brown, dark brown, preferably in warm tones, and one dark in cold tone, but if you don't have warm and cold ones, any brown will do, grey, white and black, and maybe some dark blue to enhance some shadows. In my style of drawing, I like to use some crazier colors, so I also used blue and violet, but they are totally optional and could be switched for regular grey mixed with a little bit of other colors depending on the place. Now I start to add more details to the eye. Eye area is very big, it is not only the eyeball but also eyelids and the whole brow area. I start to introduce dark and more intense colors, a dark cold brown and violet. I still use them with quite a light pressure and building the colors layer by layer. I mark the contours of the eyelids, but I still use a very low pressure. I need to mark them and they must be clear, but I don't want them to be cartoonish. We are going to define them later. I started to add more saturated color to the coat above the eye as well. My pressure is something around a middle strength. the eyelid, I don't have any sketch, so I softly make one with the brown pencil. I mark the pupil, but also very lightly so far. When I go back to the eye, I add color to the iris and brown to the pupil. I strengthen the contours a little bit and I am marking the eyelashes. I'm using the white pencil to add some lighter color here. The paper is quite light, so it is not that visible, but it still makes a difference. The darkest colors I leave for the pupil. Here I use black and dark blue as well. Under the eye, I add some of the more crazier colors, light blue, pink and violet. Those can be replaced with cream and grey colors. If you don't have cream color, you can use pink and orange with light pressure and then blend them a little bit with white. Now I finished the ears. I am not adding too much details here. I basically mark the shadows with brown and the light areas with yellow and vibrant orange. On the nose, I also use a lot of more vibrant colors: dark blue, light blue, violet and pink. For a more realistic effect, they should be replaced with natural colors like grays and browns. The pink often shows on the nose naturally, so it can also be used. You can see that I am not staying on any area for too long now. I mark different areas of colors all over the drawing. I'm using more pressure, but not too much, so that errors are not fixable. If I mark some dark areas now and later I notice that I got something wrong, I will be able to move it slightly. I'm also building up the colors layer by layer, so they will look much more blended in the end. I usually mark the darker areas first and blend them with lighter colors. After colors are blended, I go back with the darker color and enhance the darkest areas more. Notice the way that I am holding the pencils to make those layers. I hold the very end of the pencil and touch the paper with the side of the graphite. This way the pressure I apply is not too much and I can make smoother layer without any harsh lines that could be difficult to blend later. On areas that are more plain, such as the cheek, there is not much going on, there are no veins. But it would look very wrong if it was filled with only one color without any variations. There is some fur there, so even if it is a big area of one color, it still has a lot of variation. To make it varied at the drawing, I don't color it with even pressure. If I have a lot of layers with various degrees of color intensity, it will look much more interesting even if it is just one color. We also have to remember that there is a shadow at the bottom. Nose is a very complex area. There are a lot of weird shapes and skin wrinkles. There isn't much coat there and a lot of skin is showing, so it usually has a different color and can be the most difficult to draw. Inside of the nose, there is usually a very dark shadow as well. I used dark blue on the top of browns to make it very dark, and in the darkest areas I used black as well. The mouth shape can be a tricky one because it is another very dark element, but it cannot be exaggerated too much or it won't look realistic. I marked it with this very thin dark line and I made it slightly thicker at the end. There are a lot of skin wrinkles around the mouth, so they also make the mouth line more varied and not straight and cartoonish. The head is turned, so there are a lot of skin wrinkles on the neck. I really like drawing those, but they can be challenging. It is important to observe them well and follow the shapes that they make, which are not that obvious. They make long lines, but they cannot be straight but have to follow the shape of the neck. They also end in different places and have different angles. All of this must be noticed to make it look realistic. I marked them with darker color first, but as before, I never used full pressure. I will go back with lighter colors and blend them first, and only then I will darken the wrinkles. The similar case is with the mane as well. Here I also draw the shadows first. With hair, it is important not to focus on the individual hair, but on the shapes of color. For the first layer of the mane, I use more reddish color. I have already marked one place where some hair are falling on the neck. I mark the shadows and the areas of color. For example, place where neck meets the mane is more vibrant orange than the rest of the mane. I used violet for the shadows at this stage. Not all of the shadows will be the same level of darkness, so at this moment I want them to be marked, and later some of them will be darkened, some will not. Now working on the neck area, I like to enhance the lightest areas first. This is why I started with saturated yellow. I used quite a lot of pressure to make sure that the color is intense. On the border between light and shadow, there is this intense orange, which makes the coat seem very vibrant. I mark the shadows with browns. I use rather warm tones for the lighter shadows and colder brown for the darker ones. In some parts I mix in violet and blue to the shadows. Apart from the yellow lights and brown shadows, the remaining color of the neck is not homogeneous at all. I use varied pressure for the orange, and I also added a lot of reddish color and some ochre as well. As final touches, I go around the whole drawing, adding last touches here and there. I mostly use the lightest colors to blend the layers. And this is it. I said it is not the most realistic of my drawings, you could blend it much more, but I liked it at this stage. Let me know if this video was helpful or interesting to you, and don't forget to leave a like if you liked it. See you in the next one. Bye bye!